Welcome to the Mind Madam podcast, where we are here to talk about nervous systems, attachment, sex, trauma, and all of the patterns that are quietly ruining your life. It's going to be honest, direct. There is no guru voice, there is no therapizing, just brutal self awareness with a touch of dark humor because healing can be fun. This space is going to be mostly for men. If you're a woman, you are welcome too, as long as you appreciate directness. Some of these episodes are going to be solo, some of them with guests, but all of them are designed to challenge the way that you look at yourself and help you progress. So let's get into it. Hey, welcome back to this episode of the Mind Madam podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and I'm here today to talk about a super sticky subject, one that affects quite a lot of us, I know me included, and that is people pleasing. That's right, the beautiful world of people pleasing. We're going to go over why it even happens, that it's not your personality, and ways to actually stop it. Because who wants to spend all of that energy contorting themselves for things that they don't even want to do just to make everyone else happy? It's exhausting, and you deserve so much more than that. So we're going to start off with the fix because it's only 3 simple steps. Number 1, we have got to set boundaries, but healthy boundaries. Your boundaries are not meant to be walls. They're meant to be like a door to the house. You decide who comes in, who goes out, how long people stay, and when they get access. We're also going to stop saying yes when we mean no. It's a simple word switch. We're going to stop bending over backwards for those little lovely energy vampires, I like to call, that only show up when you're doing something for them. Now, let me guess, that is not what you came here for. Probably didn't even feel helpful. And that would be the worst podcast episode if that's all I gave for you today. But here's what I want you to realize. Technically, it is simple to stop being a people pleaser. There's not that many things you have to do. The problem is the meaning that we have attached to being a people pleaser, that it is our identity, that this is what we do. And to stop that feels threatening to our bodies. And that's why it is so hard to give up the life of a people pleaser. If it were simple, none of us would be here, would we? Here's the one thing that people rarely say out loud, but as always, I'm going to keep it real with you. If you're a people pleaser, you are technically a liar. I don't mean you're a liar in a malicious way. And I don't even mean you're a liar in the I'm going to scam you way. You don't have ill intentions. You lie because you're protecting yourself. You say yes when your body inside is screaming at you to say no. You say I'm fine when you're exhausted and crumbling under the weight of life that we all have to deal with. Or maybe you laugh things off when you're hurt. If a friend makes a condescending joke and you're like, yeah, that's so funny. Well, internally raging inside, and you're going to keep that for a future argument. Now, sometimes we are lying to ourselves because we're pretending we don't have needs. Sometimes we are lying to others because we want to avoid conflict, judgment, and abandonment. Think about those terms. How many people do you know that actively will put up their hand and be like, I cannot wait to experience conflict, judgment, and abandonment. Sign me up. No one's doing that. So it would make sense why you want to avoid it. And you're not the world's worst person. You're not even bad. I'm someone who is not preaching from my high horse. This is a pattern that I have lived through my entire life and have recently kicked. Now, what happened with me was a very big and devastating lesson because it took me too long to look. And what happened was I was in a situation where it was very black and white. Some action towards me and another was just wrong. It was unethical, it was immoral, it was inhumane treatment. There was no room for interpretation that this was not a good thing these people were doing. Unfortunately, because of this, I had to be the reckoner. to bring this problem into the light. What I realized in that moment was, in order to do that, I'm going to have to be prepared to be misunderstood, because no matter what, I'm going to be the villain in this person's story because they cannot take accountability. So in that moment, I decided, wait a second, if we're in a moral dilemma, it is black and white, what is wrong and what is right, and I'm still going to be the villain, I might as well just live my life with my pure intention and not give a fuck if people are pleased or not. Because if it comes down to the legalities, I'm choosing my integrity every single time. But people pleasing, when you're in it, when you don't have this big lesson that you have to deal with, and I hope that you don't, it's about survival. Until you understand, you're going to keep blaming yourself for why your willpower isn't working. Why can't I just set up this boundary? Why can't I just say no? And still blame yourself instead of realizing that your nervous system is really the one that is piloting your life and making the decisions. I always like to kick it off with why we are doing something, the why behind the action. In order to stop something, we need to understand why it even first started. And if you want to heal, or as I like to say, put yourself back into balance. To me, healing is a moving target. You're not a broken toy that has to be healed. You're just really out of balance. And what happens is we overcorrect with those distorted external actions like people pleasing because we are so out of balance inside. I don't look at it as healing. To me, that seems like a hard, unattainable goal. You'll never get there because in life, we always have new traumas that we have to work through. Instead, we're going to go with bringing back into balance. In order to get back into balance, we need to understand the why behind that action, because that why, that is the root of the problem. You can fix all of the symptoms that you want, all those surface level symptoms, but it's like trimming moldy leaves off a plant, when the real issue wasn't the leaves itself, but it was the root of the plant was moldy. So fix those leaves all you want. It's not going to do a single thing until you fix the root. It's not just stopping the behavior. It's about understanding where it even came from in the first place. Then you can choose differently in that moment when that trigger is coming up. People pleasing is not a personality. It's not a personality flaw. It's just a pattern of protection that says, if I just keep everyone happy, I'll stay safe, I'll stay loved, I'll belong, and I'll be valued. And tell me what human being doesn't want a version of feeling happy, being safe, staying loved, feeling like they belong somewhere, being valued for who they are. Of course you would want to do that. Unfortunately, people pleasing ends up taking us the wrong direction without you realizing it. Where it all started with people pleasing for a lot of us was actually childhood. Just like most things in life, it lays the foundation. Maybe you had conditional love, that you only were loved if you were doing something, providing something, or being the good kid. That's how you got your accolades. That's how you got attention. Maybe you had emotionally unavailable parents. If you're millennial or older, you probably did have emotionally unavailable parents. And it's not that it was necessarily their fault. Yes, some it was. But a lot of them did not even know that mental health existed. It wasn't something that was talked about. They had wounded parents parenting them, who then parented us. So of course, it's cause and effect. It's going to happen. It's not necessarily their fault, but it's our job to choose differently. And it does not erase the impact on you. It does not minimize that. It just means, let's stop playing the blame game. You also could have grown up in chaotic homes. And so in order to make it more peaceful, you made everyone happy. But it actually doesn't always start in childhood. In fact, adults can develop this too later in life. And that can come from narcissistic relationships or abusive relationships where your very survival, your very safety depends on making that other person happy. And to do that, you are going to result to people pleasing. You have no other choice in that instant. You may have in toxic workplaces where hustle culture is king. There's even some religious environments that will glorify self-sacrifice. Any situation where your safety or belonging depends on you shrinking yourself and contorting your personality to be what someone else needs in an unhealthy way at the detriment of yourself, that can wire people pleasing very deeply into you. It becomes a very ingrained pattern. And over time, you internalize that your needs are dangerous, they're not safe, and your worth is equal to what you give. You are a human being. Your worth is not dependent on what you give. You deserve to be here no matter what. Here's another funny thing. Most people think that people pleasing is just saying yes when you want to say no. And that is true. But that is the most obvious sign. Anyone can call that one. But there's a lot of sneaky little signs that people don't realize are people pleasing. Let's go into some of them. Number one, which I was queen of, and that is saying yes to plans that you secretly hope they get canceled. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings by saying no. I don't think if you're a good person, if you're heart-centered, that you want to hurt anyone. It feels like this devastating weight that if you said no, they'd likely be fine. But internally, you're like, oh my God, I've ruined their life. And so when it does get canceled, you're like, yes, I don't have to go through with this. But then when it didn't get canceled, it'd be really annoying. But that was a very common thing that came up for me and something that I'd have to be very aware of because I will default to say yes instead of saying no unless I interrupt it. Maybe you're over apologizing and just over apologizing for existing. Like, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm sorry that I texted you twice. I'm sorry for crying. I'm sorry for having a natural human response to a hard time. I'm sorry for having an opinion. You're sorry for even taking up this tiny amount of space or having needs. It's a terrible feeling to live life like that. Maybe you're avoiding opinions to keep the peace. I have seen this very often. And the way I think about it is if you constantly are keeping the peace, you're sweeping it under the rug, at some point, we're going to have a whole ass body under there because you've swept so much. I have seen this take apart families because it's like building a house of cards on a shaky foundation. When you constantly sweep things under the rug, it's going to blow at some point. That's not even just big things. That can also be like your small everyday things, like choosing where you want to eat, choosing what you want to do for an activity, an outfit. It comes across in these terms like, I don't know, what do you think? I'm good either way. You chose whatever you want, I'm good with. It's like, I'm just so low key and chill that everyone wants to be around me, but really you're just hiding what you want because you don't want to appear selfish and you don't want the judgment or you don't want to hear no. Another one that is very impactful and exhausting, it's doing favors preemptively so that no one can be mad at you later. I was someone who used to do this a lot. Do you know how much mental energy that takes up? Because you are constantly reading the room. You're constantly assessing people's needs. You are even giving them things that they may never have even asked for. You're going out of your way, putting your energy into things that serve others instead of putting your oxygen mask on first. It's okay for people to ask you. It doesn't mean you've done something wrong, even though inside it does feel like that. But once you let that go, it is so liberating. The amount of mental bandwidth that takes up all of a sudden is gone. You have so much more room to even just live in your imagination. Now, that can also bring us to feeling guilty or resting or doing something just for yourself. This one was a devastating part of people pleasing for me, and how I really noticed it showing up was actually with my daughter. When she was born, I was a stay-at-home mom until she went to preschool, but I also worked at night. I was in charge of most of the childcare. I didn't really have a lot of help. Probably wouldn't have accepted it even if I did. What would happen is I would go to my aunt once a week and I would say, "Can I just go out and run an errand?" She'd say, "Go, have fun, take as long as you want. Ellie is fine here." I'd go out, and that whole time that I was supposed to be having me time and resting or enjoying something for just myself, I felt guilty. I felt this extreme, painful weight of grief on my chest, thinking, I'm not doing a good job. I've put them in a terrible position. My God, they're watching my child who they love. That was a gift to them, but I felt like I was infringing on them. I felt that I was supposed to be the stay-at-home mom, so I should be doing everything. And I really had a hard time advocating for my needs and taking up space. And what I had to realize was, what am I teaching my daughter? I would even text my aunt and say, "I'll be home so soon. Don't worry. I'm so sorry for taking long. I had been gone for half an hour," because this is what had been conditioned into me. I felt like I was doing something illegal. And that's not how I wanted my daughter to live her life. I had to really take a hard look at what I was doing. But it's also how I don't want you guys to live your life, because no one wants to feel like that. That is not a fun way to do life, and life can be fun. Now, there's also this really sneaky one, which is getting super awkward and someone praises you, because deep down you're thinking, if you only knew the real me, you wouldn't be saying this, because you have contorted your personality to fit their needs. Even when they do compliment you on it, you're like, that's just a lie. I don't even want to do that in the first place. I have to. The most underrated part, though, that a lot of people do not connect together, and that is if you're raising kids. They're learning the relationship with boundaries by watching you. If they see you over-explain just to keep people happy, then they'll learn that love equals over-explaining. If they see that you never say no and then secretly resent it, because that comes up in your body language and your energy, kids see that, they'll learn that resentment is normal in relationships. If they see you avoid conflict at all costs, they won't learn that hard conversations actually build closeness and are a part of life. There's no way around it. If you constantly let them walk all over you because you're too scared to enforce a boundary and say no initially, then how many times have you been super triggered and lost your shit on them because they're not listening to you? You've told them they don't have to for your actions. Your fear of setting boundaries doesn't just cost you. It actually shapes them. This is why I had to take that hard look at myself, because no, it was not I was a terrible person, but I wanted to instill a different perspective for my daughter so that she didn't end up with the same terrible situations that I got put in. And that was like a gift that I had to give her, for first to know that she mattered. She knew it was worth it. Her boundaries were important. Her choices were a part of her and were important as well. And she could disagree with me, and I would be okay with that. Now, I would still parent with boundaries. I am still the mom after all. But it was important to me, even at 6, that she has autonomy and agency over the choices that are age appropriate. The good news is, your kids, they do not need perfect parents. I'm a little emotional now because this is my last 7 months where I have had to show up for my daughter despite life falling apart. And as I learned to advocate for myself, it was like she was on a parallel journey that she started advocating. That was a gift in this shitstorm of life. So your kids, they do not need perfect parents. They need parents who model repair. They need parents who say, I love you, and the answer is still no. They need parents who say, I'm sorry for yelling at you. I still don't like that you did this. You still cannot do this. Here's why. But you deserve better than me yelling at you because I'm the adult and I'm responsible for my feelings. Or I respect you enough to be honest, even when you don't like it. That is part of life. That is how you set these children up for success. That is how you break the cycle. That is how you teach them. Safety is not about abandoning yourself to keep peace. It's about knowing that they're still loved, even when someone is disappointed. What happens when you move on from people pleasing? I'm going to keep it real with you. As always, I do not sugarcoat. I just think that does a disservice to you. But when you're on the recovery for people pleasing, that hardest part is that first stretch. When saying no feels mean. If you're a people pleaser, that goes against everything you're trying to accomplish because you just want everyone to be happy, but now you're feeling mean. When you shake after setting a boundary, when you want to crawl out of your skin because the silence feels unsafe, when you advocate for your needs, even though it does feel like you're doing something terribly wrong and illegal. But that part does not last forever. You hear it a lot on here. This is skill building. At first, your skills are very uncomfortable. It's no different than a baby trying to walk. If a baby's trying to walk, they're going to fall down a few times. You wouldn't just look at the baby when they fell over and be like, oh my God, you're worthless. You're never going to amount to nothing. How have you not gotten this by now? You would never say that to a baby. So have the same respect for yourself. Because here's what happens when you stay in that long enough to rewire that pattern. You stop over-explaining. You say what you need to say, and that's all. And you don't care. And it's liberating. You say no, and your body doesn't panic anymore. It feels peaceful. A really sneaky thing too, a benefit, especially for my people out there who love chaos and are scared that deep down safe means boring. It feels really super fucking dangerous to lay a boundary down and enforce the boundary. So there's your stimulation. It's just probably stimulation you didn't want to have. But if we can trick our brains, that's what I do, find the workaround, it can help. Now, imagine you resting without any guilt and you actually get to recharge. When I say resting, you're actually resting and you're not watching TV with the computer on your lap and your cell phone while you're scrolling and talking to your family at the same time. That's not resting. That's disassociating. You notice that resentment is now disappearing because you're finally giving honesty, not from obligation. It no longer feels like, oh my God, I'm going to get found out. It's here's who I am, take it or leave it. If you don't want to be here, that's cool, but I'm not going to contort myself for you anymore. Your relationship get cleaner. What I mean by cleaner is you have people that love you for you. They will lean in. And the ones who only loved you for what you gave them, they fall away. I lost quite a few friends when I was coming out of people pleasing. And you know what? It didn't feel bad in the end because I realized just how much these people were using me to their benefit. And so why would I want them to be around in the first place? I wouldn't want my daughter to be friends with people like that. So I'm not going to be because I'm the example. And most importantly, you finally feel like you belong in your own life. You have the freedom to be you and you're in charge of you. You're not waiting for everyone else's opinions. That is exhausting. To let people pleasing go is probably one of the most liberating feelings. It removes all of this intense, heavy pressure and jumble in your brain all the time. Because you have direction, you have boundaries. It is safe. That is what is possible after navigating that first stretch, that first part of being uncomfortable. How are you going to get there? Because I'm not going to just leave you here in this gloom and doom. We are going to climb out of this hole together. And as always, we start with this micro step. I am not here for drastic life change. Usually you won't stick to that. But if you can do just small micro actions every day, that builds into big changes and impact because they step on each other. Today, I just want you to notice one place where you're about to say yes, and it often comes as a reflex when your body wants to say no. And that is going to require pause and slowing down because we need time to reflect. Whereas a lot of us just rush through life so we don't have to pay attention. It is default programming by your ego. It's a sneaky little bitch, that one. And for my heart-centered souls, I have a special interrupt question for you when you feel the need to say yes, but you really want to say no. And this is a very powerful question that you're likely going to hate me for. But it is very effective and useful. When you have that feeling come up, I want you to sit there and I want you to say to yourself, am I willing to lie to keep the peace? Or am I willing to act in integrity? And one, if you have kids, what do I want my kids to see? Do I want them to see me walking on eggshells and serving everyone else's needs? Or do I want them to see me advocating for my boundaries and my self-respect and my self-worth? And that will cause you to make either a change or you're going to stay stuck in people pleasing. But underneath it all, you're going to understand that this is what's really happening beneath the surface. It's going to make you feel very uncomfortable. Even if you still say yes, even if you reflect and still say, okay, yeah, I'm still going to do it, at least you noticed it. That is how the rewiring begins. It's in the pause, in the reflection, not in perfection. If you've been nodding along this episode and also low-key hating me, that's cool too. Means I touched a nerve. Maybe you're saying, okay, guilty, that's me. I do all of that. So did I. You aren't alone. Here's your win. You're not broken. You are just wired to survive. That's what your brain does. And now you get to rewire how you actually want to live. Start small. Notice the next time your body wants to say no, but your mouth is saying yes. That pause, that's the beginning of change. And in the next episode, we're taking this even deeper into the nervous system that drives all of this. Because you didn't start people pleasing out of nowhere. That pattern didn't just grab it from the air one day. Your body fires first. Your brain makes up the story second. And if you can learn to catch that body cue early, you can stop the cycle before it even starts. Follow if you haven't already. Share this with someone who's tired of over-explaining, tired of being a people pleaser. There's a lot of us out there. And I will see you on the next episode where we talk about why your body isn't actually sabotaging you. It's just trying to protect you. That's it for today's episode of the Mind Madam podcast. If something hit home for you, share it, send it to a friend, or even just sit with it for a moment and reflect. That's really where the real work starts. If you want more tools or just keep the conversation going, you can find me over on Threads and Instagram at The Mind Madam, at my website, www.themindmadam.com. Check out the links in the show notes for that. And remember, you're not broken. You're not a toy that needs to be discarded. You're just running old patterns, and you can rewrite those anytime you decide to.